Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is Eddie Jennings from EJSLLC.com. This video is going to be another in my RHCE practice session series where I'm preparing for the Red Hat Certified Engineer exam. Before I dive in, I want to thank returning subscribers for watching another video, as well as invite everyone, if you haven't subscribed yet, to click that subscribe button and ring the bell when you do so you can be notified of when new content comes available. Also, if you enjoy the video or find it useful, make sure you click that like button and feel free to share it with others that might also find it useful. In this video, I'm going to continue with the objective group Use Ansible modules for system administration tasks that work with, and we'll be looking at firewall rules for this particular video. And I want to remind you that this isn't intended to be authoritative information, nor is it intended to be a tutorial, but rather it's an opportunity for me to talk about whatever the exam objective is and maybe do some examples and such of it to do a self-assessment of whether or not I will be ready to handle tasks on the RHCE exam that would be related to that particular objective. Ideally, at the end of the video, I'll say, yes, I felt really confident about this, I'm ready to go. Otherwise, I'll add it to my list of a few things I need to review between now and 2 weeks from now when my exam happens. That being said, I do try to have the information as accurate as possible for you. So I'm here on my Ansible control node. Let's do a firewall test.yml, and we're going to be using good old Apache for this. So name practice with the firewall. And the module that we're going to be using for this is the firewalld module. There may be something out there specifically for editing IP tables. If there is, I'm not aware of it because all the practice I've done has been with firewalld, which I have a feeling that's really what they're looking for on the exam, is using the firewalld module. So host labrel an01, stick to that one host there, become yes. So let's get some of the preliminary stuff out of the way, and that will be install Apache. Actually, we'll say install modules, even though I'm fairly sure firewalld is already installed. You might be in a situation on the exam that you have like the most minimal of Red Hat Enterprise Linux 8 environments, and you might not actually have firewalld. So if that's the case, this is what we'd need to do for that. So I'll just say install packages using the yum module. We can do a comma separated list here and state present. And we'll go ahead and configure the services themselves. So configure services. I don't think services accepts a comma separated list for that, so we're going to use the loop for it. Even if it does accept comma separated lists, you can still do loops, but if a module will accept a list, it runs faster as its own list versus looping through the module. We want started, and remember to enable all your services, so that way they will persist through a reboot. Loop httpd and firewalld. All right, so let's go ahead and run this part of the playbook. And there's a syntax error because I'm doing this way too fast, as I often do, unfortunately. I do need, probably in these sessions here, I need to practice slowing down so that way when I'm on the exam, I'm not going to be making as many mistakes, and I'll probably end up saving time even if I'm going a little slower. So let's look this over. And also I need to get back in the habit of actually reading my error messages closely. And the problem was I misspelled the module name. I keep wanting to do services instead of service, especially when I'm trying to work with multiple services at once. Run another syntax check. Still complaining. So did not find expected key. Become, oh. That's rather embarrassing. I need to say where the tasks begin, right? Okay, so now that the error that it wasn't complaining about was fixed and the error it was complaining about was fixed, this should run. It'll take a moment or so to install the packages. All right, so firewalld was already installed and enabled, it looks like, and HTTPD obviously changed. So now we need to configure the firewall, because right now if we were to just curl http labrel an01, we're going to get, well, if I spell it right, we're going to get it can't connect because the firewall is blocking that by default. So let's go back to our firewall test and we'll use the firewalld module. Now, for just a basic configuration, you can use service if you want and do HTTPD, or you can do port. I think this accepts a comma separated list. We'll have to double check the documentation on that, but I'm going to use port 80/TCP, and you'll notice this is pretty much the same syntax as if you were using firewall-cmd. The things to take note of here for state, enabled means that this is going to be allowed, or this traffic's going to be allowed. Disabled would be that the traffic is not going to be allowed. There are two other keywords that are important. First is permanent, because remember, everything that we do has to survive a reboot, and this is the same as doing firewall command -- permanent and then doing all your stuff. So we're going to say yes. And then there is immediate. Now, this is important because we want this to be active now. Because remember, with firewalld, you basically have like a running configuration and a startup configuration. Those of whom who've worked with network devices are probably used to those terms. And if I just did like firewalld -- add port 80/TCP and let that be it, 80/TCP would be open, but it's not going to be permanent. Likewise, if I do firewalld -- permanent -- add port 80/TCP, then it will be there as far as its configuration, but I would have to reload firewalld in order for it to actually take effect. And so doing permanent yes, immediate yes takes care of that scenario to where it's going to persist and it will be immediately available. So let's run our playbook once more. And now if we curl, this should work. Famous last words in IT, right? Okay, and we get a bunch of HTML because this is just the default page for that. I do want to take a look at the doc page for firewalld real quick. So there are a couple of things I want to talk about with that. First of all, just like your firewall-cmd command, you can specify interface with this. You can also specify rich rules, which I'm not going to go into rich rules. I don't have the syntax for that memorized off the top of my head, but that can give you some more fine-grained stuff versus just port service, all that kind of thing. You can also specify various other pieces like you would for that firewall - command, such as if there's a particular source that you're wanting to block or allow. Mentioned interface just a moment ago. The other thing that you can specify is going to be the zone. So by default, this is just going to put stuff into whatever the default zone is. However, you can specify which zone to put something into. Now, I'm not sure about setting the default zone. That might not be something that you can actually do with this. I guess that kind of makes sense because whatever zone you would have the configuration with, that's going to work. But I'm not sure about setting default zone. That's something that I'm probably going to want to look up between now and the exam just to make sure. But otherwise, pretty much anything that you would do with firewalld, just it's command that you're going to be able to do with this module. So I know this was a relatively short video. I want to thank you for taking the time to watch. If you enjoyed the content or found it useful, make sure you do click the like button and feel free to share with others. I want to thank returning subscribers again for taking the time to watch. And if you're watching and haven't subscribed, make sure you click that subscribe button and ring the bell when you do so you can be notified of when new content comes available. Thanks again for taking the time, and I will see you the next time.